Hey everybody, and Tony here with a studio recorded opera review of Donizetti's Bolena with conductor Julius Rudel along with the London Symphony Orchestra and Chorus, and was recorded at EMI Studios in London, England on August 1972 and was released by Deutsche Grammophon a year later, which I heard on YouTube thanks to a user by the name of Opera. I am really psyched to review this particular performance of Bolena because of the two very fabulous divas who not only did exceptionally in their roles, but were also a major part of my childhood. And as a growing opera fan, Beverly Sills, who sang Bolena, and Shirley Barret, who sang Giovanna. Like I said before, these two singers played a major part of my childhood growing up, and I basically heard about them through names only and watched some clips here, records, so they basically grew on me as some of the finest singers I have ever heard. So let's not waste any time and talk about the singers, especially the likes of Madame Beverly Sills and Madame Verrett. Starting off with Beverly Sills in the titular role of Bolena, I thought she was able to give such a superb reading of this particular character, and she sang the role of Bolena with pure emotional abandon. I could definitely sense the anguish that she has in some areas. I could definitely sense the nobility that she gives to this particular character, and she was just all fire and passion. Yes, her voice may not be completely suitable for roles like Norma or Anna Bolena or Maria Stuarda or Elizabeth from Roberto de Verrett and a lot of other dramatic roles, because naturally Madame Sills was a lyric coloratura soprano who also sang roles like Rosina, Gilda, Violetta, Manon, and even recorded arias from Ambroise Thomas's Mignon, where she sang Fellini's Je suis Titania, and she also sang the role of the ingenue Baby Doe from the opera The Ballad of Baby Doe. So her voice may not be completely ideal for these dramatic hits, but the absolute meticulousness, the intelligence that she has, and her superb musicality, and her overall dedication, and the diligence that she possessed every time she got into these roles were completely astounding. Now, I basically knew about Beverly Sills as mostly a lyric coloratura soprano, specializing in roles like Rosina or Fellina or Gilda, and she's actually quite versatile. She even sang roles like Massenet's Thais and Gustave Charpentier's Louise, thus proving herself to be one of the most versatile singing actresses. She was in complete control of that voice. She really knew how to find certain embellishments. She knew where to pinpoint the high notes she could sing, and she was just wonderful all out. She managed to make Bolena a very diligent, strong, and just an overall beautiful character. All thanks to that signature silvery voice, which has that really luscious quality, but at the same time has a lot of emotional fire, and she sings with pure abandon, combined with a great sense of musical intelligence. And that is something I deeply respect from Madame Sills. She manages to do a superb job singing the role of Bolena, and her major highlights in this particular performance were her renditions of Come Innocente Giovane, which then leads to the cabaletta Non va sguardo, her rendition of Giudici ad Anna, the first act finale, along with the other soloists, and of course, I could never go wrong with her rendition of Piangete Voi, which then leads up to Al Dolce Guidami, and which also leads up to Cielo a miei lunghi spasimi, and of course the powerful cabaletta Coppia Iniqua, which she capped the entire affair with a high E flat, thus making her rendition very, very exciting. She also capped Non Vas Guardo with a high E flat as well, and if you know me, I'm a major high note fan. So to really hear someone as superb as Madame Beverly Sills to do such a feat is really, really exciting. So I'm not going to mince words here. Madame Sills gave an absolutely wonderful reading of the titular scene, even though her voice may not be completely ideal for this role as one would usually expect a fuller sounding and even slightly metallic sound. She backs it up with pure musical intelligence, and she was just a very wonderful singer all through. Shirley Barret, as I stated before, was equally outstanding as Giovanna Seymour. Not only did she sing the role of Giovanna, but she was the character. She managed to really immerse herself in the character's anguish and doubts, and it's all reflected on her supple, versatile, and simply put, awesome. Now, I first heard Shirley Barret when I was only 10 years old through my grandma's videocassette tape of her performance of Camille Saint-Saëns' Samson et Dalila, which she sang the role of Dalila along with Placido Domingo as Samson and Wolfgang Brendel as the high priest at the San Francisco house. And she really struck a strong first impression. She was a mezzo-soprano who proved herself to be versatile, and she had a lot of secure top notes, which is also no wonder why she was also quite successful singing in a lot of the bel canto repertoire, but also that of the soprano repertoire. Not only did she sing roles like Azucena or Amneris, or even that of Celica, which is technically a Zwischenfach role, but she also sang roles like Tosca, Norma, and even Adalgisa, and even both Didon and Cassandra, and even that of Desdemona from Verdi's Otello. She really was one of the most versatile singing actresses ever, and much like her junior, Grace Bumbry, she found great success in both the mezzo and the soprano. Like I stated before, Shirley Barret was exceptional as Giovanna Seymour. Her voice simply poured out with great emotional abandon. Her high notes were secure and had that sword-like pierce that was just really awesome to listen to. Granted, I have never heard neither Sills nor Verrett live on stage. But it's safe to say that if I would have seen them live on stage, I would have gotten goosebumps just creeping all over me. And I really, really love their duet. Their voices blended exceptionally. It starts off with Sul suo capo aggravi un dio, in which Madame Sills managed to really pinpoint the certain lines that have a lot of meaning, and Madame Verrett just sings with pure abandon, complete with high notes. And when Sills goes down and softly and quietly with Vine, Verrett just manages to give this outburst, and both these exceptional divas capped everything off with a resplendent high. Now, granted, they were not the only ones who were outstanding in this particular duet. Their predecessors, Maria Callas and Giulietta Simeonato, were also outstanding, and the same thing can be said about their successors, and the ones that come to mind are mainly that of Angela Meade and Ekaterina Kubanova, just to person. The other highlight from Shirley Barret's Giovanna Seymour was her rendition of Per questa fiamma indomita, which then leads to the cabaletta A pensate a me rivolti, which she sang with great precision and a lot of really great high notes, and she did an exceptional job. So it's no wonder why I really loved this particular version of La Grande Madame Beverly Sills and La Grande Madame Shirley Barret both stole the show for me with their great musicality and really great overall dedication to this fine art called bel canto opera. But what about the other soloists, you ask? Well, they were also fast. Patricia Curran was a really gorgeous Smeton, and I first heard about this particular British contralto ever since I was also about 9 or 10, and I was basically introduced to this singer through one of my music classes in grade school. And I was at first doubtful of Patricia Curran because she was labeled as a, and even back then, my 9-year-old mind wasn't really a major fan of a lot of the low voices. But as I grew up, I found out that Patricia Curran not only specialized in some contralto roles, well, more specifically, the coloratura contralto and coloratura mezzo roles, but she also specialized in a lot of the lyric mezzo roles, roles like Isolé from Le Comptoir, and even that of Dorabella from Gossetti. And as I stated before, Patricia Curran gave a superb reading of Smeton. Her big highlights were not only her two arias, De non voler constringere, and the other aria is Gombra e Loco, which then leads up to the cavatina Un bacio, and to the cabaletta. And it was just a very superb reading all throughout, and I especially love her ensemble work. I thought Patricia Curran did an amazing job embodying Smeton, and her voice was just really, really lovely all around. It was full, it was lush, and it was pretty homogeneous throughout all the registers. She really knew how to tackle Smeton's pretty difficult music with great precision, and she was just really, really fine. Paul Pliska was a commanding Enrico. He did an amazing job with this particular character that he practically had me shaking on my boots. And Paul Pliska is certainly no stranger to the basso cantante repertoire. He was a very well-known Philip II, Silva from Hernani, Boris Godunov, and a lot of other great roles for a basso. He was also really well known in roles like the Commendatore and Leporello from Don Giovanni, and even Titurel from Parsifal. He even stated in an interview that he wasn't really that much of a Wagner singer, but he was more inclined to singing roles from the Italian and even French repertoire. And here, I thought his portrayal of Enrico suit him like a... First of all, I really love the timbre of his voice. It has that signature round and rich quality that I really love in basso cantes, but it also has some really fine, like when Mr. Pliska launched an F sharp before Shirley Barret sang her cabaletta A pensate a che rivolti, and I thought that was a very, very great instrument that he had, and he was completely commanding as Enrico. He sang this role with emotional abandon, and he managed to make this character very commanding, strong, powerful, and very, very... You do not want to mess with this particular Enrico, as he will definitely outsing the... He was definitely a pro at really embodying Enrico's hot-blooded personality, but at the same time, he managed to make him quite noble, which should be no surprise as Mr. Pliska has specialized in a lot of the kings and a lot of the fatherly figures, which he was very well known. Before he retired, he even did some character roles like Benoit and Alcindoro from Puccini's La Boheme, and even that of the sacristan from Puccini's Toda. So I'm not going to mince words here. I thought that Paul Pliska gave an amazing reading of this particular king. Stuart Burroughs was really fine as Ricardo, though there are times that his voice does sound a bit pinched in certain areas. Though when he sings his high notes, he makes them ring, and even though there are times his voice does sound a little bit pinched in certain areas, he still manages to have a very fine aura. And this was a gentleman who was also very well known for singing roles like Don Ottavio, and but at the same time he was also very well known for singing roles like Belmonte and Percy from Ana Bolena, and even that of the titular hero of Hoffmann from Offenbach's Le Comte Hoffmann. And he's also really, really well known in singing a lot of the British arts. So I'm not going to mince words here. Stuart Burroughs was a very fine Ricardo, with a full sounding tenor voice and high notes that really rang. He was just really fine all throughout, even though there were times the timbre does sound a little bit pinched in certain areas, but that's just me. I still have to give my hat off to Mr. Burroughs for doing an exceptional reading on this really fine yet really difficult Donizetti tenor. We also have the treat of having Robert Lloyd singing the role of Anna's brother, Rochefort, even though I do wish he could have sung Enrico as well, because from what I've read, he didn't really include Enrico in his repertoire. Though my experience with Mr. Lloyd started off with his performance as the king, or more specifically Heinrich der Vogler, from Wagner's Lohengrin, where he starred alongside Placido Domingo in The Titular Hero, and Cheryl Studer as Elsa. So when I heard his voice, I thought it was one of the finest basso voices ever. And he really showed that in this particular, though his voice could have been more suited to Enrico rather than Rochefort, because if you ask me, I do prefer to have a slightly younger basso singing the role of Rochefort, because the thing about Enrico is that he is a true basso cantante, and with Rochefort he's mainly either a character bass, or in some occasions more of a bass baritone, or even that of a baritone. And as I stated before, some Rocheforts did even go on to sing Enrico and even the bigger basso roles of Philip II, Ramphis, Massimiliano from Le Mazzadieri, and a lot of other great roles for a basso cantante. So overall, I did find Robert Lloyd to be a very wonderful, and it's kind of a shame that he didn't add Enrico to his, but he managed to grow into one of the finest Borises, Philips, and even to some extent Grand Borises, Piements, and Sparafuciles that I've ever heard, mostly thanks to his dark, cavernous, rich, round, and really, really alluring basso profondo slash cantante. Then we have Robert Tier singing the role of Survey, and his well-focused lyric tenor voice was a complete asset. It was just so wonderful. And Mr. Tier was also really well known in the character tenor repertoire while balancing it out with the lyric tenor repertoire, which is why I really, really love the color that he has in his voice. So overall, the singing was really, really out, with the two major standouts being, obviously, Le Grand Madame, Beverly Sills, and Shirley Barret. And the conducting done by Maestro Julius Rudel was excellent all throughout. It was nuanced, it was crisp, and it was just a very great experience all throughout. And the chorus and orchestra of the London Symphony were really, really flawless, at least. So overall, is this a must-own when it comes to collecting Ana Bolenas? Well, if the answer isn't obvious already, then I say it is a big, fat yes, with really exceptional performances all across the border, and a very crisp sound that is produced every single time. You cannot go wrong with Madame Sills and Madame Verrett just really sing the absolute hell out of the roles in this particular version of Donizetti's. And with that said, you know what I am going to give this particular, or more specifically, this studio recorded opera performance. That's right, folks. A well-deserved 5 out of 5. If you are a major fan of Sills, or Verrett, or Pliska, or Burroughs, or Lloyd, or Tyr, then this will and might be for you because, well, they did an exceptional job really portraying their characters vocally and with such great intensity that I was completely floored over because they had great artistry and it was just exceptional quality all across. And I could also see this as being a great addition to any bel canto opera fans collection when it comes to operas like other recorded versions of Ana Bolena I might recommend would have to be the 1957 Maria Callas version because, after all, she is the ever wonderful, ever great Maria Callas. And even that of Leila and Chinchero, which was recorded back in 1958. And maybe to some extent Dimitra Theodosio's 2002. And I'm not really so sure about DVD recommendations when it comes to Ana Bolena because the only ones that come to my mind are really the CD recommendations. And for those of you who have heard this particular version of Ana Bolena, what did you think of it? Did you feel like Madame Sills and Madame Verrett really gave it their all? Was there another singer who stood out to you so much? Or did you feel like there were certain elements that could have been better? Comment below. And well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for my review of Donizetti's Lucrezia Borgia, starring Marielle de Villa, live from the Opera House of Valencia. So until then, good night.